Chapter 2. The Magic of Conditioning. The difference between try and triumph is a little umph. Marvin Phillips. The magic of conditioning. When you see a man at the top of a mountain, you know that he didn't fall there. Coleman Orr. Quarterbacks and prospectors. Consider the following three people and their occupations: a doctor, a commercial truck driver, and a pro football quarterback. What do they have in common? You guessed it, is conditioning. They made deliberate preparations for their chosen careers. Each of them invested time and money in the education essential to their respective professions. After acquiring the initial book knowledge, these professionals learned to apply the knowledge. Only through consistent practice can you complete the learning process. Developing strong prospecting skills requires investment of a different sort. The largest investment you will make to master prospecting is the time you spend on personal development. Three strategies in particular will condition you for taking full advantage of the principles in this book. 1. Use affirmations. 2. Sharpen your people skills. 3. Practice what you learn. Experience is not the best teacher. Someone else's experience is. Strategy 1. Use affirmations. Affirmations, a form of self-talk, are the single most powerful tool you have to condition yourself for prospecting. Self-talk is what you say when you talk to and about yourself. It includes the things you say aloud as well as the things you say internally. Self-talk dictates a person's behavior by molding his innermost beliefs. Positive self-talk will produce desirable results, and negative self-talk will produce undesirable results. Affirmations are things you say that induce positive self-talk. The concept of self-talk is abstract. So much so, that for 2 years after I first heard about it, I completely disregarded it. The concept seemed foreign and illogical, and I refused to try it. Looking back, I realized that those 2 years have cost me many thousands of dollars. Encourage you to learn from my mistake. Embrace self-talk, the results are dramatic. Self-talk is the subject of countless books. Building a case for and explaining the entire mechanism of self-talk is beyond the scope of prospecting rules. Even so, it is a powerful tool and it warrants a short explanation. How self-talk works. What follows is a brief, no-frills overview of self-talk. 1. The subconscious mind will focus on the most dominant message. 2. The subconscious mind receives input from hearing. 3. The subconscious mind does not distinguish between fact and fiction. 4. The subconscious mind is the gateway to our beliefs. 5. Our beliefs determine our actions. 6. Our actions determine our results. One advantage of talking to yourself is that you know at least somebody's listening. Franklin P. Jones. When we hear the same message repeatedly, it becomes the dominant message. Since the subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between fact and fiction, over time, the dominant message develops into a belief. The belief, in turn, will irresistibly dictate our actions. Applying affirmations to prospecting. When we first get involved in team building, most of us have at least some beliefs that inhibit our prospecting efforts. This is a nice way of saying that most of us have some hang-ups. If you do have hang-ups, you will need to deal with them before you can take full advantage of the principles in this book. Some of the more common hang-ups include: 1. A belief that for your opportunity to work, you must take advantage of or manipulate others. 2. A belief that others will perceive you as taking advantage of them. 3. A belief that when someone tells you no, it diminishes your own ability to succeed. These beliefs are false, yet they can paralyze you to the point that you never offer your opportunity beyond a handful of people. By applying affirmations, you can override these unproductive beliefs with productive ones. The self-talk cycle. 1. Self-talk, build dominant thought. 2. Dominant thought, modify belief. 3. New belief, act on new belief. 4. Activity, generate desirable results. 5. Reinforcement. Note, the author's complimentary newsletter, Prospecting with Purpose, includes specific prospecting affirmations. Visit prospectingrules.com to subscribe. Strategy 2: Sharpen your people skills. Samson slew 600 the Philistines with the jawbone of an ass, and every day thousands of sails are killed with the same weapon. Mcneil. Your ability to relate to different people has a direct bearing on the success of your prospecting efforts. When it comes to approaching strangers, quick connections are invaluable. By developing your people skills, you will be able to relate quickly to a wide range of prospects. The more refined your people skills, the more rapidly you will be able to make the connections. People skills are not innate. Rest assured that when you meet someone who is good with people, his or her skills were cultivated intentionally. The less value you see in developing people skills, the more you need to do just that. Personal development is crucial to all aspects of team building, especially prospecting. Reps with underdeveloped people skills often drive prospects away in the first encounter. That's too early in the process for the reps coach, aka upline, to step in and save the day. Learn to become a better you. The best way to learn about improving your people skills is through books and audio programs. This list below identifies some of the resources that one use even today to keep my own prospecting skills sharp. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dale Carnegie. The Go-Giver. Bob Burg and John David Mann. Positive Personality Profiles. Robert Rome. Cracking the Networking Code. Dean Lindsay. The Greatest Salesman in the World. O.G. Mandino. Hung by the Tongue. Francis P. Martin. Strategy 3: Practice, practice, practice. Practice makes perfect. When it comes to prospecting, perfection is optional, practice is not. From ignorance to mastery. We all know that the more you do something, the better you get at it. Scientists have developed a model that describes the process of progressing from ignorance to mastery. It's called the Conscious Competence Learning Matrix. This matrix is composed of 4 phases. You must traverse these in sequence. Let's look at how this model applies to prospecting strangers. 1. Unconscious incompetence. This phase describes someone who is unaware of what they don't know. Before you became a rep, you were in this phase. Until you started your business, there was no reason for you to consider the subject of prospecting strangers. Thus, you had no reason to know about prospecting. You didn't know what you didn't know about prospecting. Clearly, you aren't in this phase now. If you were, you would not be reading this book. 2. Conscious incompetence. If at first, you don't succeed, then skydiving is not for you. Henny Youngman. This phase describes people who are consciously aware of the fact that they lack some key skill. In other words, they realize that they don't know what they need to know. If you are new to the process of approaching strangers with a business opportunity, you are in this phase. When you first begin to employ the information in prospecting rules, you may have a tendency to become discouraged. Keep in mind that you aren't skydiving. With prospecting, you can get it all wrong and still live to try again. It will take both practice and time to move from incompetence to competence. You're not in competition with anyone but yourself, so give yourself permission to take the time. The results are worth every minute. 3. Conscious competence. A person in this phase performs the skill competently, but it takes concentration and deliberate effort to do so. If you continue to practice the principles of prospecting, you will eventually find yourself in this phase. In the conscious competence phase, you are fully aware of how, when, and where to apply the principles, but it requires conscious focus. In this phase, you will see tangible results on a regular basis. The more often you practice the principles, the quicker you will become consciously competent. Warning: once you have entered this phase, you may actually have fun prospecting. For unconscious competence, the hard must become habit. The habit must become easy. The easy must become beautiful. Doug Henning, Magician. A person in this phase has mastered the skill to the point that the skill has become second nature. The person performs the skill on autopilot with little or no conscious effort. Had you ever driven from your workplace to home, and when you arrived, you realized that you don't even remember making the trip? That's unconscious competence. You perform without having to think about it. If you employ the principles consistently, at some point you will transition into this final phase. Once this happens, the skill of prospecting will be second nature. Practice will overcome the fear. For many people, building a business like ours can be intimidating. It requires you to develop new skills and to apply these skills in strange and foreign ways. Indeed, for many reps, the most intimidating aspect of team building is the prospecting process. When I first started prospecting for team members, I had no prior related experience. My formal education was highly technical. I had never received training to prepare me for dealing with people. Merely talking to strangers was uncomfortable. The notion of approaching them with a business opportunity nearly paralyzed me with fear. As an inexperienced rep, I was using undeveloped skills to approach total strangers about something I knew virtually nothing about. No wonder I was afraid. I knew just enough to be dangerous, and danger is not my idea of fun. Understanding the fear. Thankfully, I had the blessing of a mentor who helped me to understand fear and how to overcome it. This life-changing teaching included 3 powerful truths. 1. Fear comes from lack of knowledge. Fear always springs from ignorance. Ralph Waldo Emerson. We fear the dark because we don't know what it is hiding. We fear falling because we don't know how bad the sudden stop will hurt. We fear prospecting because we don't feel prepared for the prospect's questions. If we have the knowledge to respond to his questions, we know what to say. If we know what to say, there is no fear. 2. Knowledge comes from experience. A man carrying a cat by the tail learns something he can learn no other way. Mark Twain. The more you do, the more you learn. As you gain experience in prospecting, you will come to the earth-shattering revelation that all prospects share the same list of responses. The fact is that the list of prospect objections is actually quite short. With experience, you will learn how to deal with the most common responses. You will know enough to prospect effectively. 3. Experience comes from practice. You should find this statement liberating. This single truth empowers you to overcome the fear of prospecting. Practice allows you to apply theory to the real world. Through practice, you will get the experience to gain the knowledge that, in turn, will eradicate the fear. The more you practice, the less you will fear. Following this line of reasoning, the logical conclusion is that if you practice enough, the fear will evaporate. That is exactly what happened to me, and, if you practice diligently, that is exactly what will happen to you. The good news is that it will happen. The bad news is that it will not happen instantly because it is a process. Here's more good news: the process is completely predictable. Stretching the comfort bubble. Do the thing, and you will have the power. Ralph Waldo Emerson. I call the process of practicing through the fear stretching the comfort bubble. Think of your comfort zone as a bubble. Everything within the bubble is comfortable, things inside the bubble are familiar. You have complete knowledge of everything inside the bubble. There are no strangers in the bubble. The bubble is safe, a place of refuge. Unfortunately, the prospect exists outside the bubble. A conversation with a prospect is likely to be uncomfortable. If you are like I used to be, it is extremely uncomfortable. The idea is to stretch your comfort bubble to the point that it is large enough to include the prospect. How do you stretch your comfort bubble? Believe it or not, your comfort bubble is surprisingly easy to stretch. Just follow these 3 easy steps: prospect, prospect, and then prospect some more. As long as you keep these in the right order, your bubble will stretch. When you use every opportunity to practice prospecting, you are applying constant pressure on the walls of your bubble. You will notice the stretching is taking place when you realize that you're not as apprehensive about starting conversations with strangers. With a little more stretching, you'll become comfortable guiding the conversation. After some more stretching, you will become comfortable creating the prospecting moment. Who's the oddball now? Years ago, I listened to an audio tape about one particular aspect of prospecting. At some point on the tape, the speaker said, "If you practice this call enough, you will eventually get so good at it that when the prospect says no, you'll think he's odd. I was a prospecting novice when I first listened to that tape. I remember thinking, yeah, right. Whatever. I just could not visualize anyone being that good, let alone me. One day, a year or so later, I called a prospect, and as usual, I used the script I had memorized from the tape. The prospect was flattered that I had called but wasn't at all inclined to look at other opportunities. He graciously declined, and I thanked him for his time. As soon as I hung up the phone, I said, "What an oddball." The trainer on the tape was right. I literally used the word oddball. The first time you start prospecting, you may feel a little odd about it. Once you attain unconscious competence, your perspective will make a 180 degrees turn. As a prospector in the final phase, you will be so competent that when a prospect declines your invitation, you may think that he's the oddball.